Welcome back, folks, and let me start by saying that I am very sorry for the lack of content. My first video did pretty good. You guys had, great responses. You commented, you liked, you told me what you wanted to see, you liked the bike, so that was awesome, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I promised you I would make more content, and I was supposed to go on a couple rides, which I was going to film, and then my lovely truck right there decided to completely blow the front diff. So for the past few weekends, I've been waiting on parts, tearing that apart, getting it fixed, getting it back on the road. So, 7-year-old truck, things happen, right? But in the meantime, I'm currently prepping to go to Busco Beach. Got some awesome stuff planned for down there. We're going to be down there Memorial Day weekend, and I'm super excited to go. It's going to be a family trip. We also have some friends that are going down. There should be about 25 of us going total. We're going to camp down there for 4 or 5 days, rip it up, hopefully not break anything, but, down there things get a little crazy. In the meantime, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about my Sportsman 850. And I know there's tons of reviews out there where people go through, what they like, first impression, things they don't necessarily like. But there's a few things that I've picked out while owning this bike that, that just kind of stand off as, maybe not so nice. Maybe some things that I wish I could change. And some things that I really like, some things that I think they're super smart. And I don't think they've been covered in other videos, so I want to go through them with you guys. And, hopefully this helps you if you're thinking about buying one, or, if you're trying to decide between this or another bike. Personally, I was between a Sportsman and an Outlander. And let me also say that I've been on both. Can-Am's a fantastic machine. The Sportsman's a fantastic machine. Me and my family, we've owned basically every brand except for a Can-Am. No other reason than they're just really expensive. And I will also say that I will own one as soon as I get a few more bills paid off and the wife lets me. I'll buy a Can-Am. I really want an XMR 850. So the Sportsman's not going anywhere, though. I just want them both because I like them both. But there is a few things on this Sportsman that I think could have been done better. For a bike that costs $12,000, there's definitely some things that could have been done better. And I'm going to go through each one of those with you guys. Number one, and perhaps the most concerning to me, is this. This is the front diff. And there is a wire that runs into the front diff. I'm assuming that has something to do with your four-wheel drive. That's what locks the front diff in. If I'm wrong, comment below and tell me what it actually does. The problem here is that wire sits insanely close to the CV axle. So close even that it has rubbed the paint off of my CV axle. Now thankfully the wire has this little plastic connector on it, and it's wrapped in a wire loom, and it protected it. And I've since came back with this little zip tie, pulled it back some. But that wire, the way that it goes in, is very tight. And I'm afraid that if I pull too hard on it, I'm either going to crease it or break it. But you would think that in the design phase, they would have thought of a better placement for this wire. That is insanely close to me. Time will tell how this design holds up, but personally right now, the way I'm feeling about it is that it won't hold up. So we're gonna see. Hopefully that's not an issue, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. I personally think that that's a very poor design and poor placement. Moving on to something else that, people seem to rave about this bike is the comfiness of the seat. And let me tell you, the seat is super comfortable. The problem here is it's super slick. I ride the mountains of PA a lot, and just wearing jeans or, you know, whatever you ride in, riding pants or whatever, going up and down hills, you move and slide a lot on this seat. I often find myself sliding forward when we're going down hills, and pair that with what everybody else talks about, the lack of like a nice high raised foot peg there. There's a lot more movement than I would like. I would like to be a little bit more planted. And this might be nitpicky, but again, you know, it's something that I think could have been refined on, and I think they could have done better. Now, as you can see, I swapped out the wheels and tires. The factory tires are terrible. Everybody talks about that in their reviews. And for a $12,000 machine, Polaris should be ashamed of themselves for putting that on there. They're truly, truly awful. But here's another point that I really do think needs to be addressed. The frame connects to the rear diff, which then connects to the bottom portion of the frame. There's a company that makes a brace that goes in between here to stiffen this design up. But personally, I really do think that it is an extremely poor design to have this steel frame bolting up to this cast element, then bolting up to another steel frame. Like, this steel is going to be stronger than this cast, I do believe. I'd be afraid that the added stress on the diff, you know, as the frame absorbs shock, is going to crack it over time. So I will be probably making my own rear frame stiffener here, because I want to keep my rear bumper here, and you cannot use the kit that is sold and keep the rear bumper. So I'm going to have to make something or modify something. But really, that's yucky to me, guys. Let me know what you think, but I personally don't like the fact that they bolt them up like that. You know, I don't think the differential should be a structural frame element. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, personal opinion here, but it's something I think could have been done better. Polaris should have at least included that rear frame stiffener in their overall design. If you read the forums, you hear a lot of guys talking about, you know, having issues with, you know, cracking the diff case here, or, you know, issues with this coming loose, the added stress that it puts on the rear differential. Again, I think that really could have been done better. Something else that's been touched on quite a bit, but I feel like needs to be touched on a little bit more, is the fact that this shifter is just not a very premium design for a premium bike. The bike is in park right now, and you can see I'm 6 foot tall in park, sitting normally. Hits my knee. Even when you put it in gear, going down hills, going up hills, you know, flinging the bike around, I felt this contact me more than once. My knee has definitely hit that more than once. The Scrambler uses a shifter that's up here. It's nicer looking, in my opinion, and it just seems like a better placement and design. I mean, this is almost identical to what my 2002 Polaris Magnum 325 had. And, you know, that's significantly older, and it doesn't seem like Polaris has changed that design at all. I mean, yes, it works. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I really do think that could be refined and done better. Now, moving over to the display, let me tell you guys that this is most definitely not waterproof, and water resistant is even questionable, because this is not a mud bike for me. I do not submerge it. I don't sink it. I don't, you know, run it through water that's super deep. I mean, I do play in the mud. I do splash through rivers and streams and stuff like that. But, like, I know what it was built for, and I know what, you know, it's capable of, and I'm not the type of guy to go out there and really sink this thing. I don't want to. It's not what I do with it. When I buy my XMR, that's a different story. That's a mud bike. This one's more for trails, and that's exactly why I bought it, because that's predominantly what I do. But splashing through a river in PA, got a lot of water that came over the dash, splashed into my lap, and I noticed for the rest of the day, this gauge was all fogged up, had water on the inside. I took it back to my dealer, because the bike is completely under warranty, and they put a new rubber gasket around the screen. So far, I have not had any issues with it, but it did not leave me extremely confident that this is going to hold up for a long period of time. Again, maybe I had a fluke gasket. Like I said, we're going to see. All right, next up, we're moving to the rear of the bike. And this is something that just kind of drives me crazy about these 850s, is the fact that you see a brake on this side, and Polaris didn't feel the need to include one on that side. Now, in order to get a brake on this side, you got to step up to the 1000 model. Now, at least in my area, the 1000 is about $2,500 more for the base model than this premium trail model 850. Now, yeah, the 1000 has more horsepower, a little quicker. But for my purposes, I wanted all the bells and whistles, and I also didn't want to spend $14,000 on a bike. And let me tell you, the 850 has plenty of power. This thing absolutely hauls ass. But I really do hate the fact that even on the premium 850, I am only getting one rear brake. And I think it should, you know, in all fairness, I should note that the braking on this bike is very good. And I find myself hardly even needing to use it, because the engine braking on this bike is perhaps maybe even too sharp. And maybe that's something else I should touch on here. The engine braking on this bike is incredibly aggressive. I mean, you let off that gas and it will lurch you forward in the seat. It is that sharp. And it took a couple miles of riding before I got even remotely used to it. I mean, this engine braking will absolutely rip you out of the seat if you're not careful. So, like I said, it took me some definite getting used to. I'm still kind of getting used to it. Now that I'm a little bit more comfortable with it, I find myself hardly ever even needing to use the brakes. So it's just a pet peeve of mine, the fact that, you know, I bought a premium bike, but I'm only getting one rear brake. I did know that when I bought it, but I still find it annoying. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. I personally feel like, you know, if they don't want to put a fourth brake on the base model, so be it. But, you know, the name is Premium Trail. I think maybe you should get premium equipment. Let me know what you guys think about that. My last gripe is right here with the rear sway bar. And I've seen a lot of other people on forums talking about this too, and it's something that I think, you know, Polaris should perhaps even recall, because this rear sway bar will move, and it comes in contact with the springs in the back. Now, mine is not moving crazy yet, but I've seen other guys where the sway bar has actually gone in between the coils on their rear shocks. To me, if your shock can't function as it should, it gets bound up when you're hitting a big bump, ripping down the trail. The bike could throw you off, and that's just extremely dangerous, in my opinion. Now, it may be a simple fix. Maybe somebody out there has already figured this out. But it's something I definitely think needs to be addressed. And they need to find a way to like keep this sway bar from shifting side to side. If you have a fix for this, by all means let me know, because I am definitely searching for it. Like I said, mine's not moving crazy at this point, but it definitely is moving, and it's a little disheartening, but not the end of the world. So like I said, if you have a fix for that, drop it in the comments. I would love to know it. All right, now that I've griped about all the little things that I don't really like about the bike, I wouldn't be doing this thing justice if I didn't tell you everything that I absolutely love about the bike. First, and the most obvious, is the look. You know, even with the factory tires and wheels on there, this bike, in my opinion, is just an absolute beautiful machine. I mean, I don't think there's a better looking, you know, four-wheel drive machine on the market. I mean, Can-Ams look great, the Yamaha Grizzlies, they look great, but I do not think that they look as good as the Sportsman. You know, overall, fit and finish, body lines, color, lights, bumpers, it's just extremely aggressive looking, very menacing looking. I mean, the bike just screams, you know, aggression. It's just absolutely beautiful. I can't get enough of it. I love the steel blue color. That color just absolutely pops. I know she's dirty right now, but it is still super shiny. Love the design. I cannot get enough of that design. Another key point into why I bought this bike, as I've mentioned, is I'm big into trail riding, and the rolled IRS on these Sportsmans, I just believe is untouchable in terms of comfort. Now, like I said, my family, we've owned Kawasaki's, we've owned Hondas, I've ridden a Can-Am a couple times, I've been on Yamaha Grizzlies a few times. The Sportsman, in my opinion, is the most comfortable out of those bikes. This is like riding a Cadillac. I mean, it really is. It is just so plush, so smooth. And I'm not saying that those other bikes aren't, but this just takes it one step further. The suspension on this machine is so forgiving. You know, whether you're an amateur rider or you're more experienced, this suspension, you're going to be hard pressed to find, you know, the limits. Now, it's not a sports bike. It's not made for giant jumps and big air and stuff like that. But if you're ripping down the trail, you're hitting roots and rocks, it really does just absolutely eat it up. While I've been riding it, I've kept it on the softest setting, and I've really had no complaints. I haven't bottomed it out yet, and we ride some pretty aggressive trails, and I have yet to find the bottom. Even on the softest setting, I thought maybe I would need to stiffen it up. Another cool feature that I like about this bike is Polaris included this plastic radiator cover, and this easily pops right out. But I think this is just a neat little feature that protects your rad from rocks, debris, sticks, you know, and also the placement of the radiator is pretty good. It's up high enough to keep it out of mud and water. I mean, it's not a purpose-built mud machine, but the placement is really not bad. Another big ticket item for why guys buy these bikes is the storage. Polaris has always been pretty good about including lots of storage. But something that I think they did extremely well on this, underneath the storage, is easy access to things like your battery. Right here. Got your coolant, your rad, fuse box, diagnostic port. I mean, all this stuff is in a great placement. I mean, it's up high. you take that top compartment out and it's all easy to get to. I think that's a fantastic design. It's centralized. Get to the headlights, which are adjustable. And I just find that to be a great design. I mean, huge improvements over years past. Makes it very easy to work on, very easy to maintain. 2 thumbs up for Polaris on that design. Very good. Now hopping into the rider's seat, the rider's position. The ergonomics of the handlebar setup are just really good. I mean, the bike was obviously designed for comfort. Everything very reachable. We got cool things like your little cell phone charge port here. This cool little port right here that you can hook a trickle charger up to. You don't even need to take the battery out, so if you're gonna park the bike for an extended period of time, you can hook a trickle charger up right there, which I think is a great thought. The display, when it is not fogging up on me, is pretty. There's a lot of options in there. I think you can see everything clearly. I'll go ahead and fire it up for you guys and show you. There's tons of options, and you can customize that a pretty good amount of ways. I mean, you can set up what you want where. I like to keep my engine temp on, and I like to keep my miles per hour just so I know how fast I'm going. But you can set things like your engine hours. You can set your service time. All that stuff can be done in the display. There's quite a few options, and I think Polaris did a really good job on the options provided and the placement. I mean, it's right there. You don't have to look too far from the trail to glance down and see what your bike's saying to you. You have all your warning lights down the side, should one of those come on. So good job on the display. I really think Polaris nailed it on that in terms of location, display settings, in terms of overall look, appeal. It's very pretty, very clean, very usable. You don't have to find yourself looking too far off the trail ahead in order to navigate the display, which I think they did a great job on. Last thing I'm going to touch on for things that I just think were well thought out. Underneath the seat here, I really like the placement of the airbox. It is high. It's pretty much right underneath the handlebars. Up front is where it draws air. That's something you definitely want to keep up high on the machine. A lot of older bikes, a lot of the older Polarises and Yamahas that I had owned, airbox was somewhere back here, right underneath the seat. So the bottom of your airbox came somewhere right about there. That's pretty low. I mean, if you're not planning on mudding the bike, I guess it's not like a huge deal, but more often than not, we find ourselves crossing little streams or hitting mud holes on the trail, and you definitely don't want your machine sucking up water, sucking up mud. You want it to breathe. That's a great placement. I think Polaris did a great job there, and a lot of other machines are following suit, and they're putting them up here too. Your intake for your CVT is also up pretty high. I think that's a pretty good placement for where they put it. It sits up high, it's out of the way. Good job on Polaris for keeping that up out of the water. And your CVT exhaust, which is that hose running right here. On the 570s, they routed it right out in this rear wheel well, which I think is terrible. But on this one, it's hard to see, but it comes out right here. It's kind of high, it's kind of in the middle. It's protected by these plastic shrouding around it. I really think you're going to be hard pressed to get any water or mud in that unless you sink the bike. I think they did a great job routing that. So far, I have not had any issues with getting water in the belt. I don't run it extremely deep, but like I said, I have not gotten any water in the belt, so seems like it's sealed up pretty well. Overall, I'd give this bike like a solid 9 out of 10. I mean, it really is an awesome machine. I'm having an absolute blast with it. I wanted to point out some of the things that I'm not a huge fan of, and I really honestly feel like you're gonna find those type of things on other brands. I mean, I've owned a couple other brands, I've ridden a couple other brands, my family owns a couple other brands, and there's something that we don't like on all of them. I mean, they all have their hits and misses. I really do believe that Polaris did a really good job on this machine, and I wanted to be as unbiased as possible when I made this review, because I want people to be able to look at this and make an honest decision when they go to, you know, to buy theirs. And like I said, when I buy another one, I will own a Can-Am. I like Can-Ams a lot. I just find them to be more of a mud machine. Their trail bikes are not quite as comfortable, maybe not quite as refined in my opinion as the Polaris Sportsman. This one's fantastic on the trails. The mannerisms, the power, the comfort, the overall ride and quality, I just feel like are there. I'm very, very happy with what I got. You know, I think that Polaris, they did a great job putting this together. They've been doing it for a long time, and I think they know what they're doing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. I would love to show you guys whatever you have questions on with these bikes, and hopefully provide some information, help you make a informed decision if you're in the market to buy one, or maybe teach you a little something new that you didn't know about yours. As I said earlier, we will be going to Busco Beach Memorial Day weekend. Now that I got my piece of junk truck put back together, I was a little nervous that I was not going to have the parts in time, but they're here, they're on. We will be going to Busco. I will be getting some more videos for you guys, and I apologize again for the lack of riding videos. They are coming, I promise. I'm every bit as antsy to get this thing back on the trails as you guys are. Life throws you some weird curveballs sometimes, so taking it in stride. But if you like what I'm doing, you like what you see, drop me a like, drop me a comment, follow along, and I'll have more for you guys. All right, I appreciate y'all.